emotions.
And Elijah said, "Seize all these prophets of Baal, let no one escape." Now watch this, verse 40. They seized them, and Elijah brought them down to the brook Kishon, and as God's law required, slew them there. So now, according to this, Elijah, which it appears he was only there with his one servant, which you'll see in a few minutes, he personally, with his own hand, killed 450 men. How tired do you think he was by now? And Elijah said to Ahab, in verse 41, "Go eat and drink, for there's the sound of an abundance of rain." This is all still the same day. So Ahab went up to eat and drink, and Elijah went up to the top of Mount Carmel. I guess it takes some energy to climb a mountain. He bowed himself down to the ground, put his face between his knees, said to his servant, "Go now, look toward the sea." And he went up and looked and came back and said, "There's nothing." And Elijah said, 7 times this servant came back and said, "Elijah, I don't see one cloud. There's no sign of rain." Elijah would not give up in faith. And you know, even persisting in faith takes energy. Sometimes all the energy you can manage. 7 times he said, "I don't believe it. Go look again." And he'd keep praying and worshiping God. And you know, even deep intercession takes a lot of energy. Any of you who've ever entered into a deep time of prayer, you know when you're done, you're tired, because even that takes energy. So everything that Elijah was doing today was taking energy. At the 7th time, verse 44, the servant said, "Well, a cloud as small as a man's hand is arising out of the sea." And Elijah said, "Well, go up and say to Ahab, hitch up your chariot and go down, lest the rain stop you." Don't you know that by this time Elijah was just absolutely about as tickled as he could be? I mean, it had been proven that his God was real. Ahab, who was a wicked king, Elijah had prophesied to him about a drought, and now he was going to come back and prove his power with God one more time by calling for it to rain. You know how it is when you've stood your ground and told somebody something for a long period of time and it comes through? Woo, honey. In a little while the heavens became black with clouds, and there was a great rain, and Ahab went to Jezreel. And watch this, verse 46. The hand of the Lord was on Elijah. He girded up his loins and ran before Ahab to the entrance of Jezreel, nearly 20 miles. So, what a day. He starts out challenging the people. In the process, builds an altar, makes all this hoopla, laughs at the wicked prophets all day, kills 450 men, goes to the top of the mountain, has a serious prayer meeting, comes back down and runs 20 miles. I don't know that I've ever had a day like that, but you say, well, it must have been God's will because God's hand was on him. Yes, it was, and I do believe that there are times when God's hand comes on us for special seasons like that. But what we need to do after that, everybody say after that, is we need to have enough common sense to rest. Man, get this morning. People today are just pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing and stressed out and just running from thing to thing to thing, and they're not getting the rest that they should, and it's a lack of balance, and sooner or later everything breaks down under it. Our emotions, our physical body, our minds, and everything else. Do you honestly believe that so many people should be so worn out as they are today? Almost everybody you meet, you ask them how they are, they're one of two things: busy or tired or both. How have you been, brother? Busy. How have you been, sister? Tired. So brother busy and sister tired. Come on, can I get a witness today? I mean, how many times do people say, "How are you?" And you say, "Oh, I'm great. How you feeling?" "Awesome." And we should be able to say, "You know what? I'm good. I'm feeling good. I'm happy. I'm blessed in the Lord." But it's almost always, "I'm tired. I'm worn out. I'm too busy. I'm stressed out. I'm under attack." The Lord told me one time, if you'd stay on the attack, you wouldn't be under the attack all the time. So what happens the next day? Probably what Elijah should have done is went and hidden himself somewhere away with God. Spent time with the Lord, got some physical rest, some emotional rest, which that's what I do now after my conferences. I'll get back in my city today probably about 2 o'clock, and Dave and I will go get a good meal because that's important, and you'll see that in a minute, that when God began to minister to Elijah, he fed him and gave him a nap. great spiritual answer to his big problem. Come on. He fed him, told him to take a nap. And so I'll go home and I'll play with my dog a little bit and I'll get a good hot bath because that relaxes me. And then I'll sit in my white recliner probably the rest of the day. And Monday I know I need to do television again. And so I've learned to pace myself. And I'm beseeching you today to learn to pace yourself. Don't only look at what you have done, look at what you have coming up. Come on, this is a good word in due season today. We're not impressing anybody being worn out all the time. So I will rest again all day Sunday. The one thing I probably will do is go see my aunt who's a widow, and we take care of her, and I haven't seen her for a while, so I feel like I need to go visit her for a little bit. Dave's going to watch a football game, and I'm going to rest. I may go see some of my grandkids. Just do some pleasant things and just rest. That way I'll be ready again for Monday morning. But you know what I would have done 7, 8 years ago? I would have gone home and went shopping and went out with somebody, and tomorrow I would have wanted to do some big thing, and then by Monday or Tuesday I would have been bawling my head off, depressed over my too busy life and not knowing what was wrong and all frustrated at everybody. Come on, I'm trying to talk to some people today. But see, to be honest with you, just going home and sitting around the house at night and all day tomorrow is boring. And that's why a lot of times we don't want to do it, because it's not exciting. But we don't have to live from exciting to exciting to exciting to exciting. This conference is exciting. I love this. I love what I'm doing. I have to put out a lot of emotional energy doing this. And so by the time I'm finished, I'm not only tired physically, I'm tired emotionally. And you know, one of the things that I've found helps me, go home and be quiet. Do you know even excessive talking takes a lot of energy? And some of you, when you go home and somebody says, well, how was the conference? Maybe you need to say, you know what, it was great. I had a wonderful time. And I'd like to tell you all about it tomorrow, but right now I just need to rest. Because, you know, if you go home and you just... Come on now. And you don't want to go home and walk in the house and because people didn't keep it clean like you wanted them to, have a full-fledged fit. And then go get mad and offended and yak, 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 yak. First of all, you're going to blow your witness. Secondly, you're not putting the message into practice. Thirdly, you're not passing your tests. And fourthly, all you're going to do is wear yourself out and make yourself sick. And it won't correct the problem. Hallelujah. So the next day, chapter 19, verse 1, Ahab told Jezebel all that Elijah had done and how he had slain all the prophets. And Jezebel sent a messenger to Elijah saying, so let the gods do to me and also more if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by this time tomorrow. And then he was afraid. Now, how could he have been so bold one day and afraid of one woman the next day? A little erratic, don't you think? I say it was because he was worn out. Do you know when you're physically worn out, your faith won't even function right? I mean, when we're extremely tired, it's like we can't hardly seem to believe our way out of a paper bag, let alone a real problem. He was afraid and ran for his life. Left his servant. He was, just leave me alone. I didn't want to be around anybody. But he himself went a day's journey into the wilderness and came and sat down under a lone broom or a juniper tree and asked the Lord that he might die. So here we have this great man of God one day making a fool out of 450 prophets, running 20 miles in the Spirit of the Lord. The next day he's running from one woman. He doesn't want to be around anybody, and he's suicidal. Should make some of you feel better. All right, watch. Verse 5. As he lay asleep under the tree, behold, an angel touched him and said, get up and eat. He looked, and behold, there was a cake baked on the coals and a bottle of water at his head. And he ate and lay down again. And the angel came a second time and touched him and said, arise and eat, for the journey is too great for you. So he got up again and he ate and he drank. So we see he had 2 good meals and a nice long nap. And then it was time to go back to God's business. Is anybody understanding what I'm saying here today? How many of you would be honest today and say you really think you push yourself too hard? You take on more than is reasonable. You have a false sense of responsibility, thinking that you're responsible for everything, and not only your life, but everybody else's. Come on now. You're an involvee. You got to be involved in everything. You're nosy. You can't stand not to know what's going on. Learning that a lot of life is just getting up and going to bed is a major breakthrough. The dangers of not knowing that much of life is just going to be ordinary everyday life, and that you don't need to always be trying to push for some big exciting event, may cause you to leave something that is still God's will for you, but you might leave it because it's not exciting anymore. You know, you can start a new ministry for the Lord and it's very exciting just because it's new and everybody's happy and cheering you on. But what happens when nobody cares what you're doing anymore? Nobody's thanking you anymore or making on over it, and all you're left with is a lot of hard work. You may get into things that are not God's will because they are exciting. People start things in excitement and don't finish them. The Bible teaches us in Luke chapter 14 that we should count the cost. Before we start to build or before we start to do something, we should count the cost and make sure that we have what it takes to finish it. And I want to encourage you, no matter how exciting something seems, to say to yourself, these emotions will go away. They're fickle. And the day is going to come when I'm going to be left with a lot of hard work. When you go to the car lot and you see a shiny new red car, newest model, greatest thing ever, right before you sign on the dotted line, say, I'm going to take just a few minutes here, take a little walk, and I'll be back. And you walk around and say to yourself, now for 4 years or 5 years, I'm going to be making a $400 or $500, $600, $700 a month payment depending on the car. Do I really want to do that? Am I ready to do that? Is it worth it to me to do that? Now, maybe you really need the car and you don't have a choice, but sometimes people do have a choice and they just want another toy.
Thanks for listening. Learn how to keep calm in every circumstance with today's offer, Managing Your Emotions. This teaching